Good morning, everyone. I'm in China to give a speech about picture quality on high-end television. I'm a really bad traveler, and whenever I'm actually in East Asia for the past few years, I always wake up around 2 or 3 in the morning because that corresponds to around dinner time in the UK, and my body clock just cannot get used to it. I get really hungry, and like clockwork, I always wake up around that time regardless of what I do, and I have to try and search for some food. And so I've done that today. My flight back to UK is later on today, so I flew in yesterday. And then this morning, I have to actually fly back to the UK again. I'll probably explore around the hotel to see whether there are any attractions nearby. But in China, there is this great firewall going on, and I can't access Twitter, I can't access Facebook, I can't access YouTube, and I can't access Google, and I can't even access Google Maps, which makes me quite nervous to try and wander around in case I get lost and I can't get back to the hotel and miss my plane and things like that. So, but before I do that, what I'm going to do now is to try and talk to you about what happened at IFA with regards to HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision in terms of the dynamic metadata format war, so to speak. I actually managed to speak to the BDA, which is the Blu-ray Disc Association at IFA, which concluded in Berlin probably around last week. And they insist that it is not a format war. I don't necessarily agree, but I'm going to tell you their point of view. Right, so as you probably know by now, or maybe you don't, but let's do a quick recap. So at the IFA 2017 trade show in Berlin earlier this month, there are 3 companies that announced sort of a partnership to try and establish an open standard dynamic metadata platform called HDR10 Plus. And those 3 companies are 20th Century Fox, Samsung, and Panasonic. And they are trying to establish this HDR10 Plus as an open standard rival to Dolby Vision, which is more established, obviously, but it is proprietary, which means that whenever SoC vendor, a TV manufacturer, they want to use their IP, which is their intellectual property, they have to pay Dolby Labs a certain amount of royalty fee. And the appeal of the HDR10 Plus is meant to be that it is royalty fee free. So any TV manufacturers, any SoC vendors, any hardware manufacturers, if they wish to incorporate HDR10 Plus into their system, they only need to pay a nominal administration fee without any royalty whatsoever. So that is the appeal of HDR10 Plus. These 2 formats, Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus, are what we call dynamic metadata system. The metadata can be inserted into either every scene or even on a frame-by-frame basis to provide an optimization of the HDR or high dynamic range playback quality. Now, there have been some articles on the internet about there being a format war once the HDR10 Plus was announced. Because let's be honest here, if you wanted to play Dolby Vision content you will need, first of all, you will need the Dolby Vision software. In terms of Dolby Vision software, you have 4K streaming, let's say from the likes of Netflix, and in the States from Amazon Prime Video, you have Dolby Vision streaming content. And there are also some Ultra HD Blu-rays that are in Dolby Vision as well. You will need a compatible hardware as well in terms of the source player and your AV receiver. So for the source player, the LG UP970 and the Oppo 203 and 205 support the Dolby Vision format. And you also need a compatible Dolby Vision display. So among all the displays on the market, the LG TVs, including their very fantastic 2017 range of OLEDs, and also some 2016 OLEDs as well, they support Dolby Vision. And Bang & Olufsen have announced a new OLED at IFA that will support Dolby Vision. Lever is another brand that supports Dolby Vision out of the box in terms of their OLED televisions. And Sony A1 or A1E owners can expect a firmware update to enable Dolby Vision, maybe, hopefully, before the end of the year. So to watch Dolby Vision, you will need compatibility in terms of the hardware, not only in terms of the display, but also in terms of the source player and also any intermediary AV receiver. HDR10 Plus, it is also very, very similar in the sense that you will need a HDR10 Plus display. Now, currently the situation is that we only know that the Panasonic 4K Pro range, which is the Panasonic 2017 4K Pro range, will receive a firmware update in the very near future to enable HDR10 Plus. So that will be the EX750 LED LCD, that will be the EZ950 or 952 in the UK OLED, and the EZ1000 or EZ1002 OLED. The Panasonic DX902 unfortunately won't be eligible for a firmware upgrade to enable HDR10 Plus, presumably because of a different chipset. It uses the HDX1 video processor, whereas the 2017 4K Pro range uses the HDX2 color processor. So if you don't have the compatible video processor to try and enable HDR10 Plus, it's going to be much more difficult. So we know the situation from Panasonic. Samsung as well, they have said that they will enable HDR10 Plus even on their 2016 sets, but only streaming only on the 2016 sets. And the 2017 sets will support HDR10 Plus with the future firmware update. So far, no other manufacturers have announced their support for the HDR10 Plus format. So as far as the TV manufacturer is concerned, only Panasonic and Samsung are the two brands that we are concerned with HDR10 Plus. So to play HDR10 Plus, you need a compatible display, and you also need a compatible receiver or a player. Currently, HDR10 Plus is not an official layer in the Ultra HD Blu-ray specification. So the mandatory layer in the Ultra HD Blu-ray specification is HDR10, which is the open standard static metadata format. So all Ultra HD Blu-ray player will support HDR10. And then you have the optional layer of Dolby, of Technicolor and Philips as well. And HDR10 Plus at this moment in time has not actually been included in the Ultra HD Blu-ray specification yet. But some sources are pretty confident, some sources that are close to the matter are pretty confident that by CES 2018 time next year, it will be included in the Ultra HD Blu-ray specification. And we can start seeing some not only content, not only HDR10 Plus Ultra HD Blu-ray disc, but also HDR10 Plus capable Ultra HD Blu-ray player by next year. So they are pretty confident. Well, certain sources are certainly quite confident on it, whereas other sources are quite non-committal. But the landscape will become clearer at CES 2018 with regards to HDR10 Plus. But you can understand why some parties think that there is a format war going on, because to play Dolby Vision, you will have to have the compatible Dolby Vision display and a compatible Dolby Vision player. To play HDR10 Plus, you will have to have a compatible HDR10 Plus display and a compatible HDR10 Plus player. And it is unlikely anyone, even the most hardcore enthusiasts, will go to the trouble of buying two sets of player and display to try and consume this content in the best quality. So let's say if you have already owned an LG OLED, a 2017 LG OLED, and an LG UP970 or an Oppo 203 or 205, it is very, very unlikely that you will buy a HDR10 Plus player and HDR10 Plus display to try and watch HDR10 Plus disc, because it's a significant amount of investment. So I posed this question to the BDA when I met them at IFA, and they insist that it is not a format war, and they actively want to avoid the format war narrative. I can see that point. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I'll tell you their point of view. So their argument is that this is unlike a format war of, let's say, Blu-ray versus HDTV. Remember, I think back in 2007, Toshiba was on the HDTV camp and Sony was on the Blu-ray camp, and eventually Blu-ray won out. Fundamentally, what the BDA is saying is that the current situation with HDR10 Plus and also Dolby Vision is very, very different from the situation between Blu-ray and HDTV. And the key word here is compatibility, right? So what they mean is that, let's say back in 2007, 2008, if you buy a Blu-ray, the Blu-ray cannot be played on a HDTV player, and vice versa. So if you buy a HDTV, you can't actually play it on a Blu-ray player. But the situation is slightly different with Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus, because on the disc itself, the Blu-ray Disc Association, or BDA, has mandated that there is a base layer of HDR10. Albeit static metadata, there is still a HDR10 base layer format on both discs, regardless of whether you have a Dolby Vision disc or a HDR10 Plus disc. They will both have a HDR10 layer. So even if you play a Dolby Vision disc on, let's say, a HDR10 Plus player, it will still play. So there's no compatibility issue to a certain extent, because the HDR10 Plus player can still play the base HDR10 static metadata format. And the same applies to Dolby Vision disc as well. Let's say if you play a Dolby Vision disc on a HDR10 Plus player, it will still play. It will still display something on the screen, because they will recognize the base HDR10 layer and decode and display it appropriately on all the displays. What the BDA is saying is that you're still going to get a fantastic experience, even from a static metadata HDR10 experience. And I certainly agree to a certain extent, especially if you have a capable display. By capable display, I think maybe the 2017 OLEDs or an LED LCD that is capable of 1000 nits full array local dimming with sufficient dimming zones. So you can still have a good HDR experience, even though it is not the best. So dynamic metadata is meant to provide a better HDR experience than static metadata, because there is optimization on a frame-by-frame or scene-by-scene basis. But still, even with static metadata, as long as you have a good enough display, you can still get a great experience. And interestingly, this is just as a side note, the only studio that has committed to HDR10 Plus is 20th Century Fox. And we know that all the Ultra HD Blu-ray titles or the 4K Blu-ray titles that 20th Century Fox has issued or released so far are all graded to around 1000 or 1100 nits. So let's say The Revenant, let's say Deadpool, I believe, is 20th Century Fox as well. Let's say The Martian, let's say Kingsman. They're all mastered to around 1000 nits or 1100 nits, unlike other studios like Warner and Sony Pictures that grade their Ultra HD Blu-rays up to 4000 nits. So 20th Century Fox is a studio that has issued so far all their Ultra HD Blu-ray releases in 1000 nits. And as long as you have a capable display, maybe a 2017 OLEDs, then you will still get a great HDR10 experience. And that's the point the BDA is trying to make, that you're still going to get a good HDR10 experience, regardless of whether your player and your display can actually read the dynamic metadata layer. So that is their point of view. I can certainly see their point, and especially when certain manufacturers, they try and generate dynamic metadata from static metadata by analyzing the incoming histogram on a frame-by-frame basis, as is the case with the LG OLEDs, the LG 2017 OLEDs. So the 2017 LG OLEDs have this active HDR technology, which is, I think the technical term that they like to use is dynamic tone mapping. So it will analyze the incoming signal and then decide the best tone curve to apply to dark scenes to bright scene. So in bright scene, they will try and retain more specular highlight detail, whereas with dark scenes, they try not to suppress it too much. And so the shadow detail will become clearer. From that point of view, certain manufacturers certainly are doing certain things to try and optimize your HDR10. By HDR10, I mean the static metadata HDR experience. So even if you don't actually get the dynamic metadata experience from, let's say, a HDR10 Plus disc or Dolby Vision disc, you can still get a great HDR10 experience. But of course, if you want the best dynamic metadata experience, you have to buy the necessary compatible display and player. So yes, that's the situation with regards to HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision at the moment, and hopefully at CES 2018, the landscape will become clearer. We can see which studio will commit to HDR10 Plus and whether they can actually recruit more TV manufacturers, whether they can recruit more film studios, more content creators to join their camp on the appeal of a royalty-free open standard for dynamic metadata technology. And it will be interesting to see whether there will be any Ultra HD Blu-ray disc and player that will be announced at CES 2018. So this is Vincent Teo here. I'm currently in China. I'll be flying back to the UK later on, but this is really early morning. I'll see whether I have the courage to explore the neighborhood without the help of Google Maps, which I realize now that I've come to depend on so much. But if you have enjoyed this video, if you have found this video useful, please click the like button and subscribe to the HDTV Test YouTube channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you the next time.